Hello, everybody, and welcome to EduMatch. We're so glad to have you here today. So follow along with us on the hashtag EduMatch. And speaking of EduMatch, did you know that you could be the featured person of the day? Check us out at edumatch.org, and under the Get Connected tab, then you will see a place to sign up to be the person of the day. So definitely we encourage you to do that and to get yourself connected. So today we have such an awesome crew with us tonight. So I'm very excited to jump into this topic, which is going to be about restorative practices. So as you can see, we're going to do this kind of Brady Bunch style. So we're going to go from my left, and we're going to go down. And then after that, we will have the two moderators introduce themselves. So Felicia, I'm sorry. Thank you so much for joining us. If you could just please tell us a little bit about you.
Yes, my name is Felicia Thomas. I'm from the great state of Texas. I'm an assistant principal, formerly a counselor and an interventionist. And one of the things that I'm so excited about, RJ, is because I've done it in small portions as a counselor, but we're going to unleash it this year at our school.
That is sweet. And I have to tell you that you have like the best last name in the world. I'm just saying.
That's right.
That's right. And to somebody who has a great letter for their last name, then let's go next to Marlena.
Hey, EduMatch. This is Marlena Gross-Taylor, live from Nash Vegas, and super excited to be and honored to be part of this panel today. I am the founder of Edu Gladiators and also a district ed leader here in Nashville, Tennessee. And, you know, most importantly, I just love being an advocate for our kids, for our teachers, and for the profession in general, because we do great work. We create the leaders of tomorrow. So thanks for having me here, and excited to share about restorative justice.
Awesome. Thanks so much for being here. Very glad to have you. All right. So next we have our two amazing moderators. So I'm going to let them introduce themselves, and then immediately afterwards, take it away with the first question. So we'll go first to Victor, and then Kate, if you can please both introduce yourselves, and then you can get us rolling.
All right. I guess I'll start. I'll wait for my partner to come in and say hello to everybody. But hello, everybody. Victor, Northern California, East Bay area. Shout out to everybody in East Bay. Hey, hi, Mom, all that, you know. Let's see. What have I done this year? What have we done? We started the Restorative Justice League earlier in the year. We've got the Twitter chat going, co-moderate that with my co-moderator of this, Kate. We co-moderate the Voxer group. And then I just recently, with a bunch of other California educators, started the Cali Ed Chat Voxer group, taking questions, talking about the issues on the Twitter California Educators Chat. So we're doing that, you know. And then, Sarah, you want to talk about the thing? Should we talk about it? We should drop it right now? Let's drop it. All right, let's drop it right now. All right. So we're also going to be working on, all you restorative justice people out there, are you lovely, lovely, lovely restorative justice people? We are taking submissions for a book on restorative justice practices, how they look like in your school area. What are the stories that happen? What are the changes that have occurred? So we're going to be putting that together, trying to get that out, we don't have to do that yet, but we'll get it out. You'll see about it. You'll hear about it. I'll be talking about it, yelling about it, all that. Kate? So, Kate? Yeah.
Okay. Hey, everybody. I'm Kate Zakshevsky. I am, like Victor said, his partner in crime. We co-founded the Restorative Justice League on Voxer back in December on the last Ed Camp Voxer. And then shortly after Victor and I met each other, we said, let's go crazy with this. And we founded the Voxer group that we talk in every week. During the school year, we have our Twitter chat on Sunday night. And then we also play the questions in the Voxer group so that we can get into more of a deeper conversation about all of the topics that go along with restorative practices and creating a better culture and climate for our kids and coworkers and families to be successful in. I'm a science teacher here in New York State. I've been teaching grades 7 through 12 at a school where kids are involved with either the foster system or the criminal justice system. So my kids have some extenuating circumstances going on. But my school adopted restorative practices about a year ago, and we're in a 3-year transition process to where we're going to be implementing and combining RJ with what we're already doing in our schools. We use normative culture, which is more of it's non-punishment based behavior strategies. So it blends really well. And just recently, I've become involved with the Erie County Restorative Justice Coalition, which is a group in my neck of the woods, Erie County, that's working with different schools, Buffalo Public Schools, a number of charter schools, and with community to build relationships and to work on solving issues through talking and understanding rather than crime and punishment, as Dostoevsky would say. So that's us. So look for the book coming. We're going to be talking about that more in the next 2 months, I would imagine. And what else do we have going on? We have our Facebook page. We have the Voxer group. We have a Padlet full of resources that I'm sure we're going to share with you guys. And so welcome. I'm glad that everybody's here. Okay, Sarah.
All right, wonderful. Well, it's so glad to hear from everybody. So just wanted to turn it back over to the moderators. Y'all can go ahead and start throwing out the first question.
Okay.
Kate, would you like to go evens and I'll go odds?
Sure, evens. Okay, yes.
All right. So, panel. $1 million question to begin with. Why should schools be implementing restorative justice practices? Who would like to answer that first?
Okay, I'll take a stab at it first.
All right, go ahead.
So throughout my career as teacher, principal at all 3 levels, elementary, middle, and high, and now as a district leader, one thing that I know is that how we're currently approaching discipline is not working. We often talk about the repeat offenders, and we even have catchphrases for the kids that are frequent flyers in the principal's office or, in detention or ISS. And so I think it was Albert Einstein that said, when you keep doing the same things, expecting different results is pretty much insanity. I feel like right now, all of our schools are struggling with the same type of insanity. And it's time for a change. So I know for me, I had restorative justice practices in my classroom and pieces of it as much as I could as a principal, and even starting to try to implement some of those now as a district leader and encourage that we have to do things differently, because ISS detentions, those are not the answer. We have to dig a little bit deeper and really be the warriors for our kids and advocate what different looks like in our schools.
Very good.
Totally.
Mm-hmm.
Totally. Kate, you had something to add?
No, I'm glad that you're here, Marlena, because I know from the Voxer group, you have so much to say. You have such great experience, and I'm glad to finally meet you kind of in person.
Virtual.
You participate in our book, because I think that you would have a great voice for that.
Absolutely. Happy to do that.
Felicia,
Yes.
Would you like to add to the conversation? It's Love Fest we have going on.
Yes, I would love to. I totally agree with Marlene. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay,
Yeah.
I totally agree with Marlene. One of the things that I've noticed, being a counselor as well as an assistant principal, is that a lot of times, most of the time, our kids who are our frequent flyers, they don't have those social emotional skills. They haven't had anybody talk them through, why did you do this? What was your thought process? Helping them figure out how to handle their situations better. And one of the things that I always would tell teachers is that they don't have a lot of tools in their toolbox to be able to deal with these different situations that occur in their lives or these triggers. And so I think RJ does that for them, and building that community and having them talk out conflict, it teaches them how to have new tools to handle those difficult situations. And I think that does decrease our frequent flyers.
Hey, I'm with that. Kate?
Yeah, I agree. And great that you brought that up because this week we just started summer school at my school, and I have some of my kids that I've had last year, but I have some new kids as well. And we just went through training for TCI, which is Therapeutic Crisis Intervention. And part of that is something called a life space interview that you would use usually after some type of traumatic or upsetting event at school has occurred. And within that life space interview, it's talking about, so this is, what happened. How are you feeling when that happened? And connecting the behaviors to the emotions. And then one of the parts of the life space interview is coming up with different ways of dealing with something that upset the student. So we work with them on identifying alternatives to their responses that could be a lot more beneficial for everybody in the classroom, and that way it would result in less of an emotional reaction to whatever situation. So that's great. And I just recently did a circle from the book Heart of Hope by Carolyn Boyce Watson and Kay Pranis. There's an emotional identifying emotion circle where I won't get into all of it, but the point of it, because I could talk for a while.
Yeah.
But the point of it was to talk about emotions. What are different emotions? And after we had kind of a roundtable discussion, each of the kids picked out 2 cards, blind pick, random pick of different emotions that I had written down. And they were to look at the cards and then identify something in their past where they have felt that way. And then we talked about the feeling and why they felt that way. And then we talked about the physical aspects of those emotions. So to connecting the emotion to like a physical feeling or behavior. So, and I agree with you, Felicia, that, our kids really need practice with that. And a lot of times they don't have the vocabulary. They don't have the words to explain how they're feeling.
And I'm really glad you bring all of that up, Kate, because I think that leads very nicely into the next question.
Okay, very good. Nice segue. Let me okay, so participants, what do you do to implement restorative practices in your classroom? Felicia, do you want to go first this time?
Sure. So when I was in the classroom, one of the things that I did was back when I was in the classroom, we had tribes. So we did do the circles and we did the tribes activities. As a counselor, I pull kids. It wasn't necessarily a classroom circle, but I would pull them and we would do our own circle, and we used a program called Strong Start, where we really talked about our emotions, how we feel. And then I would say that we used a little bit of the restorative in just dealing with students when they had conflict, especially last year, really talking through like, what was the harm? Why did you do it? What was it that you were trying to get? And trying to help them really think through how to handle that same situation differently the next time. And the last thing I'll say is we do this program in Texas, in one of the school districts where I've worked presently, called ARC, and we do it with teachers, and it's similar to the circles, but it's for teachers. And so our teachers sit around in circles. Administrators do not lead the circle because we want them to feel safe to say whatever it is they need to say, but it also builds that community and gives our teachers an opportunity to talk about even just what they're struggling with. So I think, RJ is great for our kids, but our teachers need it too.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm glad. Yeah, I have to. Sorry, I got to cut in. I got to cut in with that one. I'm so, I really think that's one of the things that really helps out a school culture is when teachers and administrators and staff and everyone is getting along. Because when everyone is on the same page, I mean, you got to think about it like a team. What are the teams that do the best? Because they're the ones that get along. They're the ones that can hear each other, that can communicate with one another, that have an understanding of what they're doing, where they're supposed to be, when they're supposed to be there, and they're on the same page. And so I really feel like, and just in my experiences of being in those circles, that's generally what you get. You get that with teachers and staff, and you also seem to get that within a classroom, definitely. Kate, did you have anything to add?
Yeah, I did actually. So at another conference I went to earlier this year, one of the presenters was talking about how one school implemented restorative practices, but just with their teachers. They only did circles with their teachers. And they still saw a large improvement in student behavior. Like you're saying, Felicia, all of us need to feel that connection and the safety and the trust. and be able to express our emotions. So it's helpful for everybody. Mm-hmm. Okay. And then Marlena, would you like to answer the question?
Yeah, actually, I'm multitasking. I'm putting it on Twitter too, but two things from a teacher perspective. When I was teaching, one thing that I started out with was teaching the novel Touching Spirit Bear by Ben Michelson.
Yes, we do that.
Favorite book ever to teach restorative justice. And I did it at the very beginning of the year. And I did not, I'm be very honest, I did not care what the scope and sequence or any of that was, because the first 2 weeks you're building culture, setting your procedures in place anyway. So this is how I did that. So I laid the foundation for restorative justice, what that term is, what it looks like. So the kids were able to really see what it looks like through the eyes of the main character, Cole, in the book. And then we use that as our grounding point. If situations happen, or as we would have circles, we would reference that book throughout the entire year. And it was a great way for the kids to understand on so many levels about discipline, right and wrong, the gray in between those areas, the purpose of having to restore balance in the situation. Many of the kids read the second book on their own after, because they loved it so much, where Cole is the lead in the second book and leading restorative justice practices in his school. So we started there, and it just really set the tone for the community in my classroom. As an administrator, one thing that I did, and it kind of goes back to what you said, Kate, is I actually had all of our teachers trained in CPI, not even our gen ed teachers, not for the restraining piece at all. We had a very high population at one of the schools I was principal in of exceptional children. But when people think of CPI, they think of restraint. The majority of CPI is de-escalation. Restraint is your last option. And because I had so many special ed teachers and new ones that went through that process, they were like, everybody needs to be trained in this. Like, everybody needs to be trained in the de-escalation and really understanding how to pause, how to dig deeper, how to give kids a break and space until they come to a place where they can communicate and talk and understand and really be ready to listen. So our whole school went through that CPI training process.
That's awesome, Marlena. And it's interesting. I'm glad that you brought up the restraint piece, because I was a little nervous to say that has something to do with TCI, because I didn't want to give people a bad picture of that. But the end point of TCI, if you've exhausted every other option, you've been proactive, you were able to set up your classroom and your relationships in a way where students felt safe and could explore their triggers without getting to a physical point, or you de-escalated what was happening. If you went through all of that and you ended up in some sort of a physical restraint, then you would do this life space interview afterwards. But I've actually done a life space interview 3 or 4 times this week without there was no physical restraint whatsoever. But it was just a way to help the kids work through their triggers in exploring other options of response that was very helpful. So you can use that without even going to that restraint piece.
Absolutely. I mean, I look at the strategies that they teach in there. To me, those are basic strategies that every teacher, gen ed, should have included. And so the teachers, my special ed teachers, saw that like everybody could benefit from this. And I think it goes back to maybe, Felicia, what you were saying, that our teachers need that training on how to de-escalate. They need training on strategies instead of hitting the button for the office right away.
I totally agree. That's one of the takeaways I got this year, was that I felt like new teachers coming in, as well as my veteran teachers, need that input. They need that training, because without it, they don't know what to do a lot of times. And this year I really had to work with teachers on, let's identify the triggers and let's de-escalate before it gets to a place that the child is tearing up the classroom or physically violent toward others. In Texas, there is a prerequisite before we can do CPI, and it is wonderful. And last year I did have a few of my teachers just take it because it was free online, because they needed to learn how to de-escalate. A lot of times they don't come to us with that. And so they just think it's hey, the principal needs to handle this situation. So my biggest takeaway from last year that I'm trying to go into this year with is to prepare my teachers so that they're ready and they know how to handle those situations. And the last thing I'll say is, I was going to meet with a parent and I had a teacher tell me, please let her know it's not our job. No, I was going to do a talk to a bunch of parents. I was going to do a presentation at a parent empowerment seminar. And she said, let them know it's not our job to parent their children. And I said, no, that's what you don't understand. When we work at a Title I school, that is our job, to parent their children and to give them the skills they need to be successful.
Yeah, I think, building from that, Felicia, I think that's, we can sit and say, that it's not our job. And it might be on paper, quote unquote, not our job. But realistically, I mean, we're either going to need to teach them how to do it or continue this trend of just criminalizing behavior. And that's not working. So, maybe it's something that we, if you're I'm not trying to hurt anybody's feelings, but if you're one of those people that believe that my job is done in terms of teaching these children once that bell ends, I'm sorry, but you're gonna still have that issue because somehow this kid has to learn how to socialize in an appropriate manner. And if you're not going to teach it, well, then they may not learn it. And that's something you're going to have to deal with. Now, just, anyone else want to, because I don't want to move on before anybody else got something else to add. I want to get all your genius ideas out there for the world on the record. So people, because I'm assuming that people are coming to us and looking to us for a beacon of help and light and hope. So implementation strategies for classroom for the good of the order before we move on. Any others?
So, and of course now I completely lost what I was going to say, but what is it? Yeah, so that's exactly part of the conversation that we're having in our Voxer group right now is the social emotional learning and how teachers in, a teacher preparation program were not prepared to successfully deal with real life of our kids. We're trained in how to deliver content, how to create a really awesome lesson plan, background of classroom management, psychology. But when we get to school, one of our members was talking about some incredibly traumatic experiences that some of her kids, even in kindergarten and first grade, had experienced, and she had no idea how to handle that. So we need to provide more resources for our teachers to understand what our kids are going through and how to help them. And then also part of it was that some of our Voxer members were saying that some of the more resistant teachers had said straight up, that's not my job. But as we all know, especially, and I like how you brought up a Title I school, Felicia, because there are a lot more needs there in terms of being more for the kids than just a classroom teacher. But it is our job. We have these kids for 6 hours a day or more sometimes. And they look to us, we're models, even if we don't realize it or not. They see our interactions with other kids, with other adults. And that either reinforces what they're coming to us with or helps them see a different way of interacting with people. So that's what I want to say.
Okay. Yeah. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Victor.
I just got a question. Someone hit me on Twitter with a question, and I just want to pose this out there because I think it's relevant to our conversation currently. David S. Atkins. Hey, what's up, man? All right. David S. Atkins asked, how can we help students experience accountability, accept responsibility, and identify ways to repair the harm done? I have an answer to this, but does anyone want to go first?
I can go first. Well, so identify accountability. Usually when we do circles, we ask the individual who would be the offender, what was your role? What role did you play in the experience? And then from there, we can talk about, why was the harm committed? And it's always great, I think, to come up with, have the kids or the individuals involved come up with their ideas on how they can repair the harm, because I think they're more likely to go through with it and it'll be more authentic. So that's me. Okay. Anybody?
Well, Kate, before I answer your question, Victor, I just want to share something, because Felicia, you mentioned it, and Kate, you mentioned it as well, about how our Title I kids are sometimes our neediest kids, and I'm gonna respectfully disagree, and here's why. Because all of our kids need it, and I know this to be true. I've worked in Title I schools for a majority of my career, actually, but when moving here in Nashville, when I was a principal in a very affluent area here in Nashville, just south of Nashville proper, one of the most affluent in the country, the most affluent here in Tennessee. And what I saw, and I'll be very transparent, I thought, well, wow, this will be a great transition, especially as a principal of an affluent area. Everything should be really copacetic. The kids should be, as I call it, teacher proof. Everything's rocking and rolling. They have just as many issues as our Title I kids. They may look a little bit differently, but the social emotional piece is as needed, if not more, because they have a sense of entitlement in the affluent areas that could be just as devastating to their characters as children, as adolescents, whatever the grade level is, as those that might have a lower socioeconomic class. So I found myself using these restorative justice practices even more so in an affluent area, as I did when I was teaching in a Title I area.
I kind of want to clap for that, Marlene. I'm with you. All right. I'm with that. I'm with that perspective, because that's a perspective I don't really have. So, I'm really with that. You got the answer to my question, though. Yeah, David's waiting on you.
Okay. So I hope I get all of the question answered for you. And if not, let me know. Okay. I think it really starts first with setting that norm for your class, and having your kids write goals and see where they're coming from. What do they think the norm is when situations happen? So I think having that time, especially in those first 2 weeks, before you even maybe really need the hardcore circles and practices, getting the kids to know each other so they can learn to connect with each other, setting those goals of what they want their class to look like, their school to look like, how they want to contribute in that manner, I think is really, really important. But you also it helps to have the support of your administration as well, so they can make sure that the practices that you have in your classroom that are restorative justice, they are supported in the central office piece. And here's what I mean. I did not send kids to the office unless it was a zero tolerance, like the drugs or alcohol, the things that, you just have to do, for the most part. But if it was anything less than earth shattering like that, the kids, I took care of it myself. I wasn't afraid to call parents. I wasn't afraid. And when I say call parents, not to complain, look what your child did. This is what happened. I'm going to need your help. We need to problem solve together how to support your baby, because your baby's my baby when they're here at school. And using those words with those parents so they really understand that you love their child, I think is really key. So I think having that administrative support helps. And then lastly, we have to teach our parents what we're doing in school, because a lot of our parents don't know how to parent their Generation Z students, their kids right now. And so we need to give them strategies that can support them. And that also goes along with what we're doing at school. So there's not a complete shift. Perfect world, there's some continuity between what we're doing at school and at home. Perfect world. And we should always be striving for that. But we have to really look at our parents as partners and equip them with the tools that they need so we can really help their kids focus on the main thing, which is learning and growing.
Felicia, did you have anything to add before I answer? I got my answer. But Marlene, I love that answer.
Kate, it was great.
We're just this panel.
Love this panel.
Love this panel. Felicia, you got something to add?
No, I think that Marlena covered it. I will say this though, Marlena, I agree with you. The issues are a little different on the affluent side, but they still too do have issues that need the restorative piece as well. One of the things I want to throw in here though, when we talked about teachers just needing to have that training piece, is that I think when kids have been through traumatic experiences, teachers haven't been trained in counseling or psychology, and they don't understand that they've dropped down to their lower brain and they cannot make wise decisions or process through what happened when they're in their fight or flight. And so we really have to teach our teachers that when they're in fight or flight, we've got to give them the opportunity to calm down and give them the skills that they need to calm themselves down so that they can get back up to their upper brain and be able to make wise decisions or have a rational conversation about what has happened.
No, that's beautiful. I liked our third and fourth question, so I'll combine them. And I'll I guess I will. I don't know if I will. Kate, you want to in some way while I answer? You might be able to, because you're asking the fourth question. But so I'll answer this question real fast. David, I love this question. How do we help students experience accountability, accept responsibility, and identify ways to repair the harm that's been done? From my experiences, I would say that the best way to start the process is getting them to know each other, getting them to know teachers, finding some adults that they actually can connect with, because that person's going to need to be the person that helps coach them through this. Because if they already don't have the ability, or they're having trouble with being able to accept accountability and to accept responsibility and to identify ways of repairing the harm, then they're going to need someone to help them do that. So that's going to take someone that they trust. So it's really important that not only are the students getting to know each other, but the adults are getting to know the students and letting the students get to know them, because that actually creates a situation where, maybe a kid that has no one in the world feel like they've got you in their corner. And that's going to lead them to actually talking about, explaining things and issues that you were probably not ready to expect to hear, but you heard it now, and now you got to do something about it. And that's really what I've seen in my experiences, how it's happened, and how it's really been effective. We got all four of us. Kate, you got the fourth question for us, Kate?
Well, yeah. So, combining, how would you implement restorative practices in your school successfully, whether it's classroom by classroom or school-wide? And what advice would you have for people who want to start using restorative practices in their classroom, or talking to their administrators about bringing in restorative practices? And Marlena, do you want to go first?
Yeah, sure. Again, I think that it's hard for a lot of, let me back up. When we talk about restorative justice, we're literally talking about changing the narrative of discipline as we know it in our schools and how it's been practiced. So it's hard to be what you can't see. So I think when you're talking about wanting to move towards that direction, it's very, very helpful if, whether it's a teacher or a group of teachers or counselors or principals or whomever can actually go, they can actually see it. Now, I think we're really fortunate in the world of technology that we have tons of video clips and we can connect with people like we're doing right here from all over, to see and talk about what it looks like, to have those resources. But I think for most people, you need to see it first, to understand what it should look like, and then take what could I do in my class to start that process. To start implementing those practices. Now, from a leadership perspective, and we were talking about this in the Voxer group, I believe maybe last week, is that, in many schools, they have a whole teacher position that is labeled ISS. So if a district or a school is really serious about changing the narrative of discipline in their building, let's start there and actually use that teaching position to teach. But let's come up with some training, leveraging the counselors that are in our buildings that do everything but counsel, it seems like, because we're in a test-driven education world right now. We're moving away from it, thankfully, but we're still in that space. let's leverage the expertise of our counselors, of our social workers to help give us some strategies to our teachers so they know, like, okay, if ISS is not an option, what am I going to do with this kid? How am I going to help this kid? How am I going to help them? Because at the end of the day, that child is still coming back to your classroom as a teacher. And so we have to have some type of balance restored so the situation won't be repeated.
Mm-hmm. Excellent answer. Leisha, what would you like to add?
I totally agree with what you said. This year, what I'm proposing is that we're bringing in a person who has experience with restorative. She practiced it a lot last year on her campus, so I'm hoping that she'll come in and do a training for us. But I'm also suggesting that we roll it out through the circles with the teachers. So we're going to practice, like, how does the introduction circle look, so that our teachers have something to base that on, and then showing videos like Marlena said so that they can see it, because we really can't go anywhere, but we do want them to be able to see what it looks like. And then just a soft rollout in that it's not mandatory, but here's what we would like you to do to build this community in your classroom. So that's kind of the direction that we're going to go in this year, giving everybody the literature that they need, but try not to overwhelm them. But I will say that it being an administrative decision to try it, I think makes a difference in it being a school-wide thing. Whereas I know someone on the Voxer was sharing that she was doing her class, she tried to get administration and they wouldn't. Well, this is a rollout from our district. They're saying we have way too many African-American students who don't contribute. They're like not the major part of our population, but they make up the major part of our discipline referrals. And what's going on there with that? So one of the things that we're trying in my district is the restorative piece, because we are trying to figure out how to deal with that disproportionality and to make those numbers more balanced.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So a few things. Recently in the training I went to yesterday, the facilitator was talking about what his experience, and he had started at a school in central New York, and he was the administrator, and he said, as an administrator, okay, everybody, this is what we're going to do. We're doing restorative justice. Here's the training. Okay, go do it. And he ended up having a lot of pushback, as you could imagine. And what he said that he learned from that experience is that you want to start with the teachers who are already interested or who already feel like they would be successful at doing something like that, or who are ready for a change. You start with them. He called them the pioneer group. You work with them, do trainings, work in circles, and then facilitate, help them facilitate circles in their classroom. And then the teachers who are not that interested, or who were not thinking that restorative practices would work for them, they could see these pioneers out there working this process, and then seeing the success that they have. And then eventually some of them would become the settlers group, where they would move into this new, story of discipline in their school. And then they would, take the training and whatnot. But I also agree with you need to see it. You don't really understand what a circle is like, or what circle processes are like, until you're either in it or you're seeing it, right? So there's a ton of great videos out there. Oakland Schools has great stuff. And a lot of the things that they put out there are circles that are actually led by students, which is really great. And then there's also a video that I put it in our Voxer group about a school in West Philadelphia who was one of, I think it was the most violent school in that area, where they were having, fires lit in trash cans during school, on a daily basis. And they brought in restorative justice and practices, and the whole school climate changed. The kids felt safer, and a lot of the discipline or the referrals and the suspensions dropped, and a lot of kids were starting to attend school more. So, okay. And Victor, what do you got?
Well, I've been tweeting. I tweeted a couple of things that I think are definite considerations when you're talking about implementing RJ school-wide, and I got some things I didn't tweet, so maybe I'll have to tweet them in the page. I would say with this, you've got to change your mindset. You have to operate behavior in your classroom, not looking for things that students do wrong. but looking for clues or signs that something isn't quite right with them. Because if you can figure out that something's not quite right with a student, you can probably predict if they're going to have a bad day. And if something is going to happen, or if something could happen. If a student walks in and they look obviously tired and they're yawning, they might fall asleep in your class. It could happen. If you see a student walk in and they're in tears, they might not be in a position to actually do work in class. So do consider what is going on in your student's life. And let's just be completely clear. Life is crazy, and we all know that life is crazy. We as teachers and educators, we have bereavement leave. Someone dies, we could take a couple of days. They don't have that. If they're sick, if we're sick, we can have a sick day. They don't have that. Yeah. There's no sick days. You're here or you're not here. You're absent or you're in school. So do keep in mind that you want to keep some sort of idea of what is going on in your students' lives, and adjusting to that will make this a lot easier. But implementing it school-wide, you need a culture of care. You need counselors. You need resources to therapists, to outside counseling, to family counseling. You need helpful community members that are willing to come in and take some of the burden of talking to and mentoring students. You will need mentors. You will need mentors. You will need people that students can trust, and that they want to trust, and that they want to like. Because let me tell you, there's going to be a few that's going to need someone. And if you got that person, if you got a go-to person, or you have a couple go-to people that are just really friendly, really great with the students, they're going to be really helpful with this process. They really are. But like I said, it starts with a mindset change. It starts with a very big mindset change. Looking at kids not as problem kids, but as kids with problems, basically.
Yeah, so. Exactly. And I wanted to say also, like, the fundamental piece of restorative justice practices, TCI, CGI, all of that other stuff, the first thing that shows up in your little training booklet is building relationships. That's number one. You want to build relationships with your kids. Yeah, it's going to take some time away from content at first, but the better relationship you have with the kids, the more willing they're going to want to do anything for you. When they know that you're there for them, you trust them, you have their back, then they're more willing to take risks and participate and show up and share. Get the other students who maybe aren't on board, get them on board. So,
well, and just to add to that, and this is a shout out to all my middle school peeps out there. The fundamental practice of middle school is having that advisory time where we focus on, as a middle school teacher, we focus on, of course, helping kids adjust to all the crazy changes developmentally that they're going through, physically, emotionally. But it also provides a really great opportunity to build an in-depth relationship with kids, with their teachers. And it just amazes me that we focus on that so much, and the kids respond so well to that because they need that in middle school. And we can use some of those restorative practices during that advisory time. But when they get to high school, we feel like, okay, well, they don't need it anymore. They're older. And so I've seen a lot of high schools start to keep that model, at least through ninth grade. They call it a ninth grade academy, but all it is a glorified eighth grade, a glorified middle school model, because it has that one person that those kids can connect to. And that's something, as a middle school person, we're super, super intentional about. Like, every kid needs to have that one go-to adult. And so, when we think about restorative justice, I also feel like we can continue that. If we know it works in middle school, why would we stop that? Just like we know small group instruction works in elementary, why do we stop that in middle school and go to lecture? Same kind of concept. So I see you laughing, Felicia. It's true, so I would love to see more high schools especially do keep that advisory piece, so those kids have that person that they can go to and connect with.
Yes, I agree.
Can you expound, Felicia? Can you expound?
Yes, it was so much. I have to like take it all in. But I totally agree with you on that. We are doing this thing called Power Hour, where we will have time set aside for our community and building those groups. But I like what you said, Kate. And now I'm thinking it and I'm like, well, maybe we should just take those pioneers and have them start and then have our other teachers see how well it's going. So that's something we may think about. But I agree on the relationship piece. And that's the part that a lot of time is missing when I have classrooms where there's a lot of drama or where there's a student and a teacher issue and she's constantly writing him up. It's usually there's no relationship built. And what I found is when I build that relationship with my kids, they'll come to me and tell me exactly what happened. Well, you know, he took my blah, 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 and I had to handle up on it. And they will be very honest with me and we can talk it through. And I can be honest with them and say, but you were wrong. And they're fine with that. Like we can have that honest conversation, but that's because we have this foundation of a relationship built and they trust me and they know that I care about them, but I care about them enough to tell them the truth. And so I just, if I can get all my teachers to buy into the importance of building that relationship, that is the beginning. And then they will do whatever you ask them to do. They will listen to you. They may not agree, but they'll be like, yes, miss, you're right, miss. All right, miss, I'm going to think about that. So you're right. Relationships are just the foundation for helping students be successful.
Love it, love it, love it, love it. Okay, so those of you who are listening to this right on Zoom or wherever you're listening to it, Kate and I just posted that Padlet. Restorative Justice Practices Resources. It is epic. That's why it is called Epic. Padlet. Restorative Justice Practices. If you yourself, human being, listen to this. If you yourself have anything to add to that Padlet, please go ahead and do that. That's why we have it.
Victor, you have to let me sing the song.
Go ahead, sing the song. Go ahead.
Put it on the Padlet. Put it on the Padlet.
Oh, that's a boxer chat stuff. Y'all don't, if you're not in the boxer chat, you won't know nothing about that. You have to be in it. You have to be in it. We talk.
Real talk.
Boxer chat. We talk
Real
a lot. We talk about this, talk about issues, all types of issues. That Twitter chat is coming back. Kate, when are we bringing that back? Is that August or September? When is that?
Well, I would imagine first week. Well, maybe the first week before school starts. I think that'd be a good kickoff. Mm-hmm.
All right, so maybe like August, probably August.
Last week of August, something like that.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, that works for me. That work for you guys? You guys good with that?
It's good.
That's good.
Oh,
awesome.
Yeah. Victor, should we tell him about that Ed Camp Global Change?
Yes, we have that.
Chat boxer global thing, tweet thing.
Yeah, there's so much stuff on Twitter we're gonna be in. There's the Ed Change chat global thing, and then there's the goodness. Oh, there it is. Sarah's hitting me up. The Ed Change Global, the Ed Camp, the EduMatch Ed Camp. We were doing that. We're gonna do like the Phys Ed Summit. We doing the Phys Ed. All right, we're doing the Phys Ed Summit. Yes, let's do it. I didn't know. I'll do it. Yeah, I guess we own it. We're doing so much. It's so silly. We're gonna be everywhere. Well, not everywhere, but everywhere.
We're gonna do it like a world tour next.
Yeah, like a Restorative Justice world tour. We're like, you guys are good with that, right? Everybody's good with that.
We're
Marlena,
good.
You got an issue
I'm ready
with that?
to go on the road. Yeah.
Ready to go on the road? Felicia, you got your bags
I'm
packed?
there.
Felicia?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Oh man. Let me look through Twitter and see if anyone else put a question up. I love the question that David put. Let me see if I got any others. People were asking about the Padlet. The Padlet's up. Go for the Padlet. Go to the Padlet. It is marvelous. It is marvelous. It is marvelous. I'm having people telling me that their union needs to get behind this. Their district needs to get behind this. Yeah, everybody's need to get behind this. This is. It makes sense. It makes sense. We're teaching kids how to be good people.
Right.
Let's see. And I'll tweet out the link to our Voxer group if anybody out there knows what Voxer is and wants to join our group or is not sure what Voxer is, just message us and we'll tell you. We'll send you some cool videos. So I'm going to go ahead and tweet out our Voxer chat.
There's also the Twitter page.
Mm-hmm.
Do we get a Twitter page, love? The RJ League Twitter page?
Yes. At RJ League chat Twitter page. Yes.
Yeah. It's everywhere. Yeah. What don't we got? We can get some more of that. All right. Do we want to do parting thoughts?
Yes.
We should. Sarah, you got something to add before we?
I'm gonna let y'all say what you gotta say before I close it out. But really quickly, I just want to jump in and say Lizette is saying make some t-shirts. So that should go along with the world.
T-shirts?
Yes, that should go along with the world tour. But
All right, RJ League t-shirts, man. Maybe hats, maybe merchandise. I don't know. Parting thoughts. Restorative justice in schools, classrooms, all that.
I'm just
Anybody
going to say,
start?
Yeah, I'll start. I'll say what drives what I do every day is what's best for kids, and RJ is what's best for kids.
Marlena, got anything? Love it, Felicia.
I love that. That's awesome, Felicia. Totally agree with that. I mean, that's the call of Edu Gladiators, right? Bringing in a new era of how we do things based on what's best for kids. And when we talk about discipline, I think, whether you're ready to jump both feet into restorative justice or you're dipping a toe or two in it, just remember that when we talk about discipline, it's not about you. You can't take it personally, what the kids say or do, because they're just reacting in the only way that they know how to whatever situation that normally doesn't even involve school. Mm-hmm. So just keep that in mind and continue to be encouraged and stay connected to people that are trying to do what you're trying to do or maybe already doing it, so you can continue to connect, learn, grow, and succeed for your kids.
Love it. Kate, you want to go or should I go?
I'll go.
All right.
Using restorative practices has changed my classroom for the better. Not only my classroom, but I think it's just changed like my kids' lives for the better. And you should just look up whatever resources that you can find. There's a ton of books out there, a lot of videos, training. And even if your administration doesn't necessarily support you in doing it, you can still create a strong community in your classroom. And you can still get the benefits of that. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Oh. All right. I'll end on this. To everyone that's listening to this or watching this and shaking your head and going, oh, those loving, bleeding heart educators, I want you to think about something. If you are dead set on punishing your students and you really believe that punishment is the best way to correct their behavior, suspension ain't a punishment. It's not. You mean to tell me I do something wrong and I can go home? Darn.
Yeah.
Darn. So for all of you that's still suspending students and really believes that that's a punishment to the kid, I can probably bet you that it's not. It's not. You mean to tell me all I got to do is yell a curse word and I can go home and lay in my bed? Okay. All right. That's the mind of a child. That's the mind of a child.
Can I add to that, Victor? In one of the videos, a student addresses that and says, I think it was in the West Philadelphia video, and she says, all kids really see suspension as is free time. They don't really see it as an actual punishment. They just like, great, I can go home, sweet, And there's a billboard that I drive past every day that says, after 2 suspensions, the dropout rate for that particular child goes to 50%. So he or she is 50% more likely to drop out after being suspended twice.
And so that's not our
think about the future. And these are the kids that will be taking care of us at some point, So
yeah,
don't really care about what their outcome is. Think about how your life will be impacted later when you're old. There you go.
Yeah. Sorry, Kate. I was just agreeing with it. I was just saying, yeah, over and over again. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Victor,
Yeah.
you're hilarious.
I'm just agreeing. That's all. I'm just agreeing. Well, that's been this. We've had a good time. I've had a good time. Oh, y'all had a good time?
Absolutely.
Sarah?
Yeah, I had a great time. Oh my goodness, you all are amazing. So thank you so much for bringing your great insight today to EduMatch. The back channel was on fire. So shout out to everyone who's here today on panel. Shout out to our 2 moderators. Shout out to everyone who is tweeting with us, watching, lurking, YouTube living with their comments. So great stuff, great stuff. Just wanted to remind y'all that the EduMatch cookbook, Recipes for Ed, #Recipes for Ed, is now out. You can get it for free, or you can get like a physical copy or a Kindle copy. Just check out our website, edumatch.org/books. So the audio from this session will be available on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, and anywhere you get your podcasts. So just check it out. It'll be out in a couple of weeks, and we will be tweeting the Twitter transcript from Participate. Next week, we actually have a double header. So come back at the regular bat channel. 6 p.m. we're going to be talking to Charles Bachan, and he'll be talking about gaps in curriculum. And 7 o'clock we will be talking to Eric Francis, who will be talking about asking the right questions. So definitely, if you want to be on panel for either or both of those, then just sign up at podcasts.edumatch.org/sign up. All right, let's see here. Wanted to give another shout out to EdChange Global coming up on July 28th. So check that out, tiny.cc/EdChange Global. EdCamp EduMatch coming up August 5th. So edcampedumatch.org, and the PhysEd Summit. So you can check that out. Check them out with their Twitter handle at PhysEd Summit, and the link will be there. In addition, just one more announcement. So major announcement. If you head to our website, edumatch.org, then you'll see there on the homepage, scroll all the way down. We have new community guidelines in place because we've just grown exponentially thanks to our members. Thank you to everybody for everything that you do and everything that you bring to the table. So it's about that time, YouTube has them, Facebook has them, every community, when you start reaching a certain level, then you have some kind of norms in place. So right now, our community review period is open. So if you would like to weigh in on that, then you have comment rights at getconnected.edumatch.org/edumatch guidelines. So that's it for this week's episode. Thank you again to Felicia, to Marlena, to Victor, to Kate, and to everybody who is tweeting, watching, lurking with us. And come back next week. And it looks like my computer is frozen, so I can't stop streaming.